There are a lot of people within comic books, specifically Marvel, that are up in arms that there are soldiers, Marines, police officers out there wearing the Punisher logo while in uniform. We've heard from Jerry Conway, one of the original co-creators of Punisher. He wants Punisher to become associated with Black Lives Matter. There are also a slew of other creators that are going out there really championing the idea that we need to make Frank Castle Punisher gay. I guess to own the cops and soldiers and Marines because they're all homophobic or something. But I really think a lot of this says more about the people championing it, especially when you actually hear them speak and the way that they're talking about this, than it really does to people wearing the Punisher logo. For some reason, there's this misconception that people are wearing the Punisher logo because they think Frank Castle is this amazing character. They like what he represents. As my good friend Perch recently said on social media, people wear the Punisher logo because it looks cool. That is a dope logo. People like to wear that. It looks cool, and it indirectly, and a lot of people probably understand that it does somewhat identify kind of with justice kind of thing. That's why a lot of people in the Army, Marines, police officers have adopted it as kind of a logo for their units, as like an unofficial, or sometimes I guess an official emblem of kind of what they're fighting for, whatever their mission is. There's this weird idea that they're championing the causes of Frank Castle, and they need to wholesale changes to Frank Castle to make people stop wearing this logo. That is not going to work because the logo is just dope. You can change this all you want. They're never going to stop using it, and they're just not going to change it. If you went up to a Marine in a Marine unit that was using this logo to represent their unit and what they've accomplished on the ground and the things they have been through together, as a team, going out there, shedding blood together, in harm's way together, a vast majority of them aren't going to really know who Frank Castle is. They might know him from Netflix, but it's not like they're out there reading the comic books and they're trying to associate themselves with that. They're trying to associate the logo with them. I think people have it flipped around, but there's this weird obsession that we need to take this logo and associate it with something else. People are saying Marvel needs to sue. I'd say go for it, Marvel. A lot of these units, they might use this logo, but it's not like they're selling them on a website or whatever. They're creating them kind of in-house as like morale boosting item type things to show that we're all in this together. And I think it's actually somewhat important. And I think the idea that every soldier, police officer, Marine, anyone that's wearing this in the line of duty or whatever, or to represent their unit, is somehow some type of anti-gay white supremacist, which seems to be the thesis of a lot of people. One of the more interesting ones out there, and I think it says a lot more about Erik Larsen than it actually says about the people wearing this logo. Like I said, this is what Erik Larsen had to say, championing to make Frank Castle gay. Instead of changing Punisher's chest emblem, they should just have Frank finally realize that he's gay. And the beauty of it is that it wouldn't alter the comics at all. He'd still be dressing in leather, ignoring ladies, and hanging out in bars with other sweaty dudes. There's a lot to unwrap there. Obviously, he's saying that if you don't want police officers and soldiers and Marines to wear this logo, you need to make the character gay, insinuating that there's some type of heavy homophobic or anti-gay sentiment within those groups. We'll answer that one first. And I think this has a lot to do, I guess, with conservative people. There seems to be this weird idea that all conservatives are somehow neo-Nazis. And I believe that's probably what Erik Larsen truly believes. Doc, who's on the channel a lot, he would be identified as a conservative. He's not really a Christian. He is, I believe, a card-carrying atheist. But he's absolutely a conservative. He's far more conservative than yours truly on most issues out there. His favorite characters outside of X-Men are Midnighter and Apollo. He's talked about it quite a few times on the channel. Those happen to be two gay men in a gay relationship. If he hated gay people, why would those be his favorite comic book characters? I asked him actually the other day, I was like, do you like those characters in spite of them being gay? Are you able to overcome the fact that they're gay? Because you're obviously homophobic because you're conservative. No, I actually like the characters because of the relationship. He thinks that within the comics universe, it's one of the healthiest, most relatable relationships that's actually portrayed in comic books. It's not because they're gay. It's because of the way the characters feel about each other and they relate to each other. Definitely goes against the stereotype out there that the only people that are accepting of gay people are far left-leaning loons, right? My father-in-law, great guy, heavily involved in the Catholic Church. He's one of the Knights of Columbus. He has two sons who are both gay. You would think he's a card-carrying Catholic. He's very devout. He must have abandoned his children, right? He must have told them they have to get out and repent their sins before they can come home. No, his sons still live there. He still loves them as much as he did the day before he learned they were gay. He doesn't really care. He just knows that he loves his kids, because that's the way people feel about these things now. This isn't the 1930s. This isn't the 1950s. This isn't the 1970s. This isn't even the 1980s or the 90s. I think for the most part, people are pretty accepting that a lot of their neighbors and family are gay. It's just one of those things, or lesbian, whatever you want to say, LGBTQ plus. It's one of those things that most people have kind of come to terms with. Wes, you're a conservative. Both of your brother-in-laws are gay. You must not let them around your children or anything. No, they treat them like I would any other aunt and uncle that they have. I don't care that they're gay. No one cares that they're gay. No one even talks about it. That's like one of the bad things about comic books, and one of the things that I do find frustrating. So like, Wes, but you rail on the representation within the comic books. I don't rail that there is representation. A lot of times I rail on the type of representation. I definitely rail against the mantle swapping, which I do not think is healthy for the industry. But the representation within comic books are a lot about what you see right there from Erik Larsen. He'd still be dressing in leather, ignoring the ladies, and hanging out in bars with sweaty dudes. That's the way Erik Larsen sees gay people. And I think I'm not offended. Whatever. I don't really get offended by these things, but I do think that's extremely crass. It's very ignorant. And I don't think that's representative of a vast majority of gay men in America or the world, to be completely honest. As far as my two brothers-in-law, sure, they ignore ladies when it comes to romanticism, but they certainly don't dress in leather, and they don't hang out in bars with other sweaty dudes. It's like this dude watched Police Academy and saw the Blue Oyster Bar, and that's what he thinks gay people are. And that's why we get these caricatures of gay people, gay couples, over and over and over in comic books. And it's off-putting, because every character that's LGBTQ plus is exceptionally stereotypical, and not in a good way. There are gay men, gay women out there, and they're just like you and I. They're just normal people. They just happen to be gay. But people like Erik Larsen really think that if you're a gay dude, you dress in leather and you go to bars with other sweaty dudes. I have quite a few LGBTQ plus folks on my channel that come in here and we talk comic books. I guarantee you that my good friend Josh McDonald, that is not anything close to the way he lives his life as a gay man. I guarantee you, Joe Corallo, he's certainly been out for quite a long time. That is not how he lives his life as a gay man. But that's how Erik Larsen thinks of these dudes. And I think it's really strange that this guy thinks that he's on the cutting edge of representation and he's fighting the good fight for underrepresented people, when this is the way that he thinks about it. He still thinks calling someone else gay is the biggest put down in the history of the world. Sure, when I was a kid and I was like 12 years old, that was one of the things that you said. If you would have put somebody down, you called gay, use the F word or whatever. Not the curse word, but the other F word. And that was a pretty decent sized put down. I don't think people even use those anymore as put downs, because language is adjusted and cultural norms have also adjusted as well to be more incorporating and accepting of other lifestyles out there. Hey, this country right here where I live is 80% Catholic. No one cares. But Erik Larsen, I guarantee you, he does care. And I think it's complete projection on his part, the way he feels about gay people. He says, well, if that's the way I feel about them, all these people that I think are terrible, they must think even worse about gay people. And the fact is, a vast majority, and I'm not going to say, hey, all conservatives out there are just super accepting of gays, or they just love them, they were, going to give them a big hug. But I think a vast majority are like, oh, whatever, man. And that was a stupid fight. I don't even know why we did it to begin with. My cousin's gay, my brother's gay, my sister, she's bi. It just doesn't affect me. I don't think about it that way. But in Erik Larsen and a lot of people in comic books, they can't get over this stuff. And that's why we get this terrible representation over and over and over. He continues on in his tweet. And then the Punisher skull would take on a whole new meaning. And it would just kill the dudes who brandish it. They're such a homophobic lot. I don't really think they are. I can tell you, I was in the military when Don't Ask, Don't Tell ended. I was on a fob with about 250 dudes and about 30 women. When that rule changed in the military and I was in Afghanistan, there were about 3 or 4 dudes who let their fiancés or girlfriends know that they weren't together anymore. And they finally said, yes, I'm gay. What do you think? That we just lynched them? We just beat them up? What do you think? We tied them down and beat them with socks full of soap? We were like, yeah, okay. I kind of feel bad for her fiance. You kind of could have told her a little bit earlier. No one gave a shit. We're like, yeah, have fun with that. There's one chick on the base. She was literally running down entire tents full of chicks. No one cared. It was funny. We certainly knew about it, but it wasn't like, oh my goodness, that lesbian. There's a lesbian on base. We've got to get this lesbian out of here. And I was like, well, good for her. At least somebody's getting some. The projection that everybody in the world thinks is lowly of LGBTQ plus people is Erik Larsen, that they're just out there dressing in leather. They're hanging out in dudes with sweaty bars. It's the Blue Oyster Cult. They're sitting there singing the YMCA and it's raining men. That's not really what it's like. I've been to gay bars. Some of them like that. Some of them aren't. Gay dudes come in all shapes and sizes. Gay women come in all shapes and sizes. Bisexual people come in all shapes and sizes. There are conservatives that are gay out there. Shocking as it may be. Hey, guess what? Maybe people didn't realize this because they weren't in the military, but there were a lot of LGBTQ plus folks in the military wearing Punisher logos because it represented their unit. That's just the way it is. Just the negative stereotypes that Erik Larsen lays out there and says, we will kill these people because of these negative stereotypes that we'll associate with the skull. No, those negative stereotypes and those thoughts are associated with you. And Erik Larsen isn't exactly a clean individual anyway. Go read his Savage Dragon comic. It's not really a Hulk ripoff anymore. It's this weird comic book about an older gentleman banging out what appears to be, she's not because they said her age, but she appears to be a teenage Asian girl. That falls into a lot of negative stereotypes too. Also kind of falls in line with a lot of human trafficking that goes on in the world. Erik Larsen needs to look in the mirror and think about how he thinks about gay folks. Stop worrying about the Punisher logo and worrying about his own self, because I think there's a lot there that he needs to fix up before he starts going out there and really talking bad about other people. Marvel Comics are changing the Punisher logo relatively soon with the new Jason Aaron series. I covered the news in full when it came out. I definitely had some pretty hot thoughts about it. If you haven't seen this video yet and you want to see how I think about Marvel Comics changing the Punisher logo, definitely check this out. I think it's very illuminating.